The giant hall of the Galactic Council was filled with hundreds of alien beings from all corners of the galaxy. John Carter stood alone at the center, a single human against the many species that watched him with cold eyes. The air felt heavy as he waited to speak. John was the best diplomat Earth had. For 3 years, he had tried to make friends with the alien races of the Council. But today was not about friendship. Today, Earth was on trial. "Humans are dangerous," said Zorex, the tall, blue-skinned high speaker of the Council. His voice boomed through the hall. "They create technologies too quickly. Their weapons grow more powerful each year. They do not follow the natural order of development." John took a deep breath. He was not just a diplomat, but also an engineer. He understood why the aliens feared human progress. In just 200 years, humans had gone from horse-drawn carriages to faster-than-light travel. No other species had moved so quickly. "Members of the Council," John began, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "Humans are curious by nature. We explore, we build, we create, but we do not threaten. We seek only to join this community of stars as equals." Murmurs spread through the hall. John could see the various alien representatives talking among themselves. Few seemed convinced. A thin, gray-skinned alien named Krell stood up. "We have watched your kind, John Carter. Your people went from simple atomic weapons to planet killers in less than a century. What will you build in the next 100 years? Weapons that can destroy stars. We cannot risk it." John tried again. "We offer our technology freely. We can work together too." "No," Zorex cut him off. "The Council has deliberated already. We have made our decision." John felt cold dread wash over him. They had decided before even hearing him speak. This trial was just for show. "Humanity is sentenced to exile," Zorex announced. "All humans will be removed from Council space and relocated to the boundary sector beyond the galactic rim. You will remain there, contained, where your dangerous progress cannot threaten galactic stability." The hall erupted in approval. John stood stunned. The boundary sector was a remote, resource-poor region with only a few barely habitable planets. It was a death sentence for billions of people. "You can't do this," John protested. "Earth is our home. We have colonies on only 12 worlds. We pose no threat to the thousands of worlds you control." "Our decision is final," Zorex said. "The relocation will begin in 30 days. Council enforcers will oversee the movement of your people." Within weeks, massive alien ships appeared in Earth's orbit and around every human colony. Resistance was impossible against the Council's overwhelming force. Humans were loaded onto giant transport vessels, allowed only what they could carry. John watched from the window of a transport ship as Earth grew smaller. His home, the blue planet that had nurtured humanity since its beginning, was now forbidden to them. "This is not the end," he whispered to himself. Beside him stood General Maria Rodriguez, once the head of Earth's defense forces. "What do we do now?" she asked quietly. John turned to her, his eyes filled not with defeat but with determination. "We survive. Then we build. They think they're containing a threat, but they've just removed all restraints on our development. No more Council rules to follow. No more hiding our advances to avoid frightening them." Maria studied his face. "You sound like you have a plan." "Not yet," John admitted. "But I will. We all will. They've given us nothing but harsh worlds and empty space, but we'll turn it into something they never imagined possible." As the transport ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying them toward exile, John made a silent promise. Humanity would not fade away. This was not an ending, but a beginning. And someday the Council would regret their decision to exile the most adaptable, innovative species in the galaxy. The journey to the boundary sector took weeks. When they arrived, John saw the 3 planets that would become humanity's new home. They were barren compared to Earth, one too hot, one too cold, and one barely in the habitable zone with thin air and little water. But as he looked at these harsh new worlds, John smiled slightly. The Galactic Council had made a terrible mistake. They hadn't contained humanity. They had set it free. 5 years had passed since the exile. The 3 planets in the boundary sector were now called New Terra, Haven, and Frontier by the humans who struggled to survive on them. Food was scarce, and the weather was harsh. People lived in simple shelters built from the remains of the transport ships that had brought them there. Commander Susan Walsh stood at the window of the small command center on New Terra. She was tired. Everyone was tired. The work of staying alive took all their energy. But today she had a mission that might change everything. "Are you sure about this?" asked Alan Mitchell, the newly elected director of human affairs. He was an older man with a kind face that had grown thin from the same food shortages that affected everyone. "No," Susan admitted, "but we've mapped everything on these 3 planets. There's not enough here to build a future. We need to look beyond." Alan nodded slowly. "Take what you need. But be careful. If the Council finds out we're exploring beyond our assigned planets." "They won't," Susan promised. "We've detected no Council ships in this sector for over a year. They've forgotten about us." 2 days later, Susan and her team of 5 left in a small ship they had built from salvaged parts. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. They called it the Explorer, and it was humanity's first new spaceship since the exile. Their target was a small moon orbiting a gas giant in a nearby star system. Scans had shown unusual energy readings there. It took 3 days to reach it. "This place is dead," said Greg Martinez, the team's geologist, as they landed on the moon's gray surface. "No atmosphere, no life." Susan checked her spacesuit one last time. "The readings came from that mountain ridge. Let's find out what's there." They walked for an hour across the dusty surface. When they reached the ridge, they found something unexpected: a door built into the rock face. "This isn't natural," said Linda Kim, touching the smooth metal surface. "Someone built this." It took them hours to figure out how to open the door. Inside was a large room filled with strange machines. The air was stale but breathable. This place had been sealed for a very long time. "What is this place?" Greg wondered aloud. Susan touched one of the machines, and it lit up with symbols she didn't recognize. "I think it's some kind of outpost. But it's not Council technology. This looks older." They spent 3 days exploring the facility. It seemed to be a research station built by a species they had never heard of. Linda found records that called them the Precursors. According to the dates they could translate, the Precursors had vanished over 50,000 years ago. Most importantly, they found technology, advanced technology that even the Council didn't seem to have. There were engine designs, energy systems, and weapons that made human technology look primitive. "We need to bring this back," Susan said on their final day. "All of it. Every piece of data, every machine we can move." When they returned to New Terra, Alan Mitchell called an emergency meeting of the human leadership. Susan showed them what they had found. "The Precursors were far more advanced than the Council," she explained, "and they left all this behind. If we can understand it, we can use it." John Carter, older now but still respected by all, studied the data carefully. "The Council exiled us because they feared our progress," he said quietly. "They never imagined we would find something like this." "What do we do now?" Alan asked the room. John smiled for the first time in years. "We learn. We build. We keep this secret. The Council thinks we're dying out here, struggling to survive on these poor worlds. Let them think that." A new plan was formed that day. Humanity would study the precursor technology in secret. They would build and grow stronger without the Council knowing. And when they were ready, when they had mastered the ancient technology, they would reveal themselves again. As the meeting ended, Susan looked out at the harsh landscape of New Terra. Life was still difficult here. But now they had hope. Hope and a path forward that none of them had imagined possible. "This changes everything," she said softly. John Carter nodded beside her. This is just the beginning. 10 years had passed since humans discovered the precursor outpost. Life in the boundary sector had changed. The 3 planets now had proper cities with tall buildings made of new materials. Farms grew food in special domes that controlled the weather inside. People no longer looked hungry or tired. Dr. Olivia Grant stood in her lab on New Terra, looking at the glowing blue device in front of her. She had spent 7 years trying to understand how it worked. Today, she had finally succeeded. "It's ready," she said to Alan Mitchell, who was still the director of human affairs. His hair had turned white, but his eyes were bright with hope. "This is what we've been waiting for." The device was an energy core based on precursor technology. It could produce 10 times more power than anything humans had built before, using just a small amount of common minerals as fuel. "Will it work for the new ships?" Alan asked. Olivia nodded. "Yes. With this, our ships will be faster than anything the Council has, and they'll be able to travel much farther without refueling." That same day, in a different building, Jack Freeman was meeting with his team. Jack was the head of security for the Boundary Coalition, as the human government was now called. His job was to protect humanity's secrets and learn what their enemies were doing. "Report," he said to the 5 men and women sitting around the table. "We've placed listening devices on the edge of Council space," said Karen Lee, his best agent. "They don't know we can build ships that can travel that far. They think we're still trapped here." "What have you learned?" Jack asked. "The Council barely talks about humans anymore," Karen said. "They think we're dying out slowly. Their reports say our population is falling, and that we'll be gone within a few generations." Jack smiled. The Council was wrong. The human population was growing. There were now 20 million people living in the boundary sector, up from the 15 million who had been exiled. "What about their technology?" he asked. "It hasn't changed much in 10 years, Karen replied. "They follow the natural order they always talk about. Slow, careful progress. Nothing like what we're doing with the precursor tech." Later that day, Jack and Olivia met with the full coalition leadership. They gathered in a room made of smooth white stone, sitting around a round table. John Carter was there too, now an advisor rather than a leader. His hair was gray, and he walked with a cane, but his mind was still sharp. "We're ready for the next step," Olivia announced. She showed them plans for new ships, new weapons, and new tools that would change everything. "With these advancements, we can start building settlements beyond our 3 planets. The boundary sector has many resources we can use if we have the right technology to reach them." "The Council won't notice," Jack added. "They're not watching us anymore. They think we're no threat." Alan Mitchell stood up. "Then we have a decision to make. Do we remain hidden, building our strength in secret, or do we announce ourselves to the galaxy again?" John Carter spoke up. "Not yet. The Council still has more ships, more worlds, more people. We need time. We need to grow stronger." "I agree," said Susan Walsh, who was now an admiral in charge of the small but growing human fleet. "Let them think we're dying while we're actually growing. One day, we'll be ready to show them how wrong they were to exile us." The vote was unanimous. Humans would continue to build in secret. They would expand carefully, making sure the Council didn't notice. They would use the precursor technology to create things the Council had never imagined. As the meeting ended, Olivia looked at the plans spread across the table. "They exiled us because they feared what we might become," she said quietly. "They never imagined what we would actually become." John Carter nodded. "They gave us the one thing we needed most, freedom from their rules and their fears. And they'll regret it someday." 20 years had passed since humans were exiled to the boundary sector. The 3 original planets were now home to busy cities with tall buildings that reached into the sky. Farms produced plenty of food, and factories made goods of all kinds. No one would recognize these worlds as the same barren planets from 20 years ago. But the biggest change was hidden from outside eyes. Humans had built 7 secret colonies on other planets beyond their assigned sector. These new worlds were rich with resources that humans used to grow stronger. Captain Steve Harrison stood on the bridge of the ECS Defiance, the first starship built entirely with precursor technology. It was smaller than Council warships, but far more powerful. Its engines could travel 3 times faster than the fastest Council ships, and its weapons could cut through their strongest shields. "All systems ready, Captain," said his first officer, Linda Hayes. Steve nodded. "Take us out." The Defiance slipped away from the hidden shipyard orbiting Frontier. Its mission was to scout the borders of Council space without being detected. The ship's special cloaking system, based on precursor designs, made it invisible to Council sensors. Back on New Terra, Director Alan Mitchell was meeting with the Boundary Coalition leaders. He was in his 70s now, but still led with wisdom and patience. "Our population has reached 40 million, he told them. "Our economy is strong. Our technology is at least 50 years ahead of the Council's. We've done what many thought impossible." John Carter sat in a corner of the room. He was very old now, one of the few left who remembered Earth. "But we're still hidden," he said softly, "still pretending to be weak and dying." "For now," Alan agreed, "but not forever." The door opened, and Susan Walsh entered. She was an admiral now, with gray hair, but still standing tall and strong. "We've made contact," she announced. The room grew quiet. This was big news. "Who?" Alan asked. "The Vereki," Susan replied. "A species from the far side of the boundary sector. They were never part of the Council. They're curious about us." This was the first contact with a new alien species since the Exile. The Council had made sure humans were isolated, but they hadn't known about the Vereki, who lived beyond Council space. "Are they friendly?" asked one of the younger leaders. "Cautious," Susan said, "but not hostile. They're traders. They want to exchange goods and knowledge." Alan looked at the others. "This could be our first ally." Over the next few months, humans carefully built a relationship with the Vereki. The aliens were surprised by human technology. They had never seen anything like it, not even from the Council. "Where did you learn to build such things?" asked Krell, the Vereki ambassador, during a tour of New Terra. Steve Harrison, who had returned from his mission to guide the ambassador, smiled. "We learned on our own, and we found teachers from the past." The Vereki didn't need to know about the precursors yet. That secret was still too valuable. The alliance with the Vereki opened a new chapter for humanity. For the first time, they had friends in the galaxy. The Vereki introduced humans to 2 other species who also lived beyond Council space. Soon, trade routes connected human worlds to these new allies. During this time, Steve Harrison and the Defiance continued their secret missions along Council borders. On one mission, they rescued a damaged ship belonging to a Council species called the Bracuri. The Bracuri were amazed by the advanced human ship and the kindness shown by its crew. "We were told humans died out long ago," said the Bracuri captain as his ship was repaired. "That's what the Council wants everyone to believe," Steve replied. "Please keep our secret for now. The time isn't right yet for the galaxy to know the truth." The Bracuri agreed. They returned to Council space with their ship repaired, but told no one about the humans who had helped them. On New Terra, Alan Mitchell looked at reports from their growing network of worlds and allies. "We're not just surviving anymore," he told John Carter. "We're building something new, something better than what the Council created." John nodded. "An empire born in exile. But soon, the galaxy will know we're here." 30 years had passed since the Exile. The human worlds were now home to 60 million people. Their secret empire included 15 planets, with 5 more being prepared for settlement. Ships moved between these worlds, carrying people and goods, all hidden from the Council's eyes. On a quiet day, sensors at the edge of human space detected a damaged ship drifting into the boundary sector. It was not a human vessel. It was not from any of their alien allies either. Admiral Susan Walsh, now in her 60s but still in command of the human fleet, ordered a rescue mission. Be careful, she warned Captain Steve Harrison, who would lead the mission. This could be a council trap. The ECS Defiance approached the damaged ship slowly. Scans showed it was an Atlaxi vessel, a species known to be influential in the Galactic Council. There was only one life sign on board. We're going to dock and board, Steve told his crew. Full combat gear. We don't know what's waiting for us. Inside the ship, they found a single Atlaxi female. She was injured but alive. The Atlaxi were tall, elegant beings with silvery skin and 4 arms. This one wore expensive clothes, now torn and stained. I am Kara Vastal, she said weakly when they approached. Thank you for finding me. They brought her back to New Terra for medical treatment. Security Chief Jack Freeman was suspicious. An Atlaxi just happens to drift into our sector. The Atlaxi are core members of the Council. They voted for our exile. But Lisa Martinez, who had replaced Alan Mitchell as Director of Human Affairs when he retired, decided to wait and learn more. Let her recover. Then we'll find out why she's here. 3 days later, Kara Vastal was well enough to talk. She sat in a comfortable room, not a prison cell. Humans had learned kindness during their exile. I am a political dissident, she explained to Lisa and Jack. I spoke against the Council's policies. They tried to arrest me. I escaped, but my ship was damaged in the pursuit. Why come here? Jack asked. You must know this sector is where humans were exiled. Kara looked surprised. Everyone believes humans died out years ago. The Council tells its people that the exile was a failure and that humans couldn't adapt to the harsh planets. Lisa and Jack exchanged looks. The Council's lie had helped humans by keeping them hidden. Clearly, Kara said, looking around at the advanced room, the Council was wrong. You didn't just survive. You're thriving. Over the next few days, Kara toured New Terra. She saw the cities, the farms, the factories. She visited a shipyard and was amazed by the vessels being built there. Your technology is far beyond what the Council has, she said to Lisa. How is this possible? Lisa chose her words carefully. We found our own path. Necessity forced us to innovate. Kara nodded. The Council fears innovation. That's why they exiled you. That's why they're now facing problems. What kind of problems? Jack asked. The Council is fracturing, Kara explained. Many species are unhappy with Xorlian control. There are arguments in every meeting. Some are talking about leaving the Council completely. This was valuable information. Lisa called a special meeting of the coalition leadership. Kara shared everything she knew about the Council's current state. This is an opportunity, said Peter Ross, the head of the Colonial Department. The Council is weak. If we revealed ourselves now. Not yet, said John Carter, who rarely attended meetings now due to his age, but had come to meet the Atlaxi visitor. But Kara could help us. She could be our eyes inside the Council. Kara looked at the old human with respect. You want me to be your spy? Our ambassador, John corrected, to find those who might be our allies when the time comes for humanity to return. Kara thought for a moment. The Council was wrong to exile you. What they did was cruel and unjust. I will help you. Lisa extended her hand, and Kara took it with one of her 4 hands. Welcome to the first alliance between humans and a Council species, Lisa said. The meeting ended with new hope. For the first time, humans had a way to learn what was happening inside the Council, and perhaps a way to find allies there. 40 years had passed since the exile. The human presence now included 23 colonies with a total population of 90 million people. Their technology had grown beyond anything the Council could imagine. Humanity had formed trade agreements with 7 non-Council species and had secret allies within the Council itself, thanks to Kara Vastal's work. The Council was finally noticing strange activities along their borders. Ships that couldn't be identified, planets that showed signs of mining, but appeared empty when investigated. Rumors of advanced technology being traded in distant markets. "They're searching," said Ryan Blackwood during a secure communication with Lisa Martinez. Ryan was a human spy working inside the Council's security forces. He had been born after the Exile and had been carefully placed using a false identity created by Jack Freeman's team. "They think it's pirates or smugglers, but some are getting suspicious." Lisa nodded. Her hair was gray now, but her eyes were still sharp. "How close are they to discovering the truth?" "Not close," Ryan assured her, "but they're asking more questions. We need to be careful." On New Terra, in a large laboratory complex, Dr. Olivia Grant watched her daughter Megan work. Megan was now 45 years old and had become a brilliant scientist in her own right. She was testing a new shield system that could block even the strongest Council weapons. "It works," Megan said as the test concluded. The screen showed that the shield had absorbed energy that would have destroyed any Council ship. "With this, our vessels will be practically invulnerable to their weapons." Olivia smiled proudly. "Your shield and the new drive system will change everything when the time comes." That evening, Lisa Martinez called a meeting of the Coalition Council, which now represented all human worlds. John Carter was too old to attend in person, but he joined through a video link from his home. "We've been patient," Lisa told them. "We've built our strength. We formed alliances, but we can't remain hidden forever. The Council is starting to see signs of our activity." Admiral Susan Walsh, now in her 70s but still respected by all, spoke up. "Our fleet now includes 200 warships with precursor technology. We could defeat the entire Council fleet if necessary." "But that's not what we want," said Peter Ross, his voice firm. "We don't seek revenge. We seek recognition and respect." The Council members nodded in agreement. Humans had changed during their exile. The anger and bitterness of the early years had faded. Now they wanted to create something better than the old Galactic Council, a fair alliance of species based on mutual respect. Kara's network has identified 17 Council species who are unhappy with the current leadership. Lisa continued, "They might support us if we reveal ourselves. But we need the right moment," said Jack Freeman. "A moment that shows our strength, but also our good intentions." The meeting continued late into the night as they discussed their options. Finally, they agreed on a plan. They would wait for an opportunity to help a Council world in trouble, perhaps during a natural disaster or an attack by enemies from outside Council space. That would be their moment to reveal themselves. As the meeting ended, Lisa spoke with John Carter privately. He was very old now, over 90, but his mind was still clear. "I wish Alan could have lived to see this," she said. Alan Mitchell had died 5 years earlier. John smiled weakly. "He knew it would happen. We all did. From that first day of exile, we knew humans wouldn't just survive. We would thrive." "Will you live to see our return?" Lisa asked gently. "I hope so," John replied. "I want to see their faces when they realize their mistake. Not for revenge, but to know that they couldn't break us, that humanity is stronger than they ever imagined." Lisa took his hand. "We'll make sure you're there, John. When humanity returns to the galaxy, you'll be at the front." As their conversation ended, a report came in from a border outpost. A small fleet of unknown ships had been detected entering Council space. They weren't Council ships. They weren't human ships either. Something was happening that might soon give humanity the opportunity they have been waiting for. 50 years had passed since humanity's exile. The unknown ships that entered Council space turned out to be the Vraxians, a warlike species from beyond the known galaxy. They attacked without warning, targeting a Council world called Eloria, home to the peaceful Elorians who had no strong defenses. Ryan Blackwood sent an urgent message from his position within the Council. "The Vraxians have destroyed the Elorian defense fleet. They're bombing the planet. Millions will die. The Council forces are too far away to help in time." Director Paul Evans, who had replaced Lisa Martinez when she retired, called an emergency meeting. Now was the time for humanity to reveal itself. "This is the moment we've been waiting for," he told the coalition leadership. "We can save the Elorians and show the galaxy that humanity is not only alive but strong enough to protect others." Admiral Susan Walsh, now in her 70s, stood straight and proud. "Our fleet is ready. We can reach Eloria in 6 hours using the new jump drives." "Will you lead the mission?" Paul asked her. Susan nodded. "I've waited 50 years for this day. I wouldn't miss it." John Carter, now 95 years old and very frail, insisted on being part of the mission. "I was there when they exiled us," he said. "I should be there when we return." The human fleet gathered quickly, 50 advanced warships with technology far beyond anything the Council possessed. At their center was the flagship Freedom, commanded by Admiral Walsh herself. John Carter was on board, watching from a special medical chair. "All ships report ready," said Captain Eric Bennett, Susan's second-in-command. "Then let's make history," Susan replied. "Jump to Eloria." The human fleet vanished in flashes of blue light as their precursor-based jump drives activated. 6 hours later, they appeared in the Elorian system. The scene was terrible. 20 Vraxian warships were firing on the planet. Half the largest city was in flames. The broken remains of the small Elorian defense fleet drifted in space. On the planet, Council representatives who had been attending a trade conference watched in horror as the Vraxians destroyed everything around them. Among them was Zorex, now very old but still the High Speaker of the Council. He was the same Zorex who had ordered humanity's exile 50 years before. "Send a message to all Vraxian ships," Susan ordered. "Tell them to stop their attack and leave this system immediately." The Vraxians responded by firing on the human fleet. Their weapons were powerful, but they couldn't penetrate the shields Megan Grant had designed. "All ships, engage the enemy," Susan commanded. "Protect the planet at all costs." The battle was short. Human weapons cut through Vraxian shields like they weren't there. Their ships moved faster than the Vraxians could track. Within 20 minutes, half the Vraxian fleet was destroyed. The rest tried to escape, but human ships caught them before they could jump away. On the planet, Zorex and the other Council representatives watched in amazement as the unknown fleet destroyed the Vraxians who had been winning just minutes before. "Who are they?" asked a young Council member. "I've never seen ships like that." Before Zorex could answer, a message came through on all frequencies. The image showed an elderly human woman in a military uniform. "This is Admiral Susan Walsh of the Human Coalition Fleet. We have eliminated the Vraxian threat. We are sending medical ships and supplies to assist the Elorian people." Zorex stared at the screen in shock. "Humans? Impossible. They died out decades ago." Another figure appeared beside Susan, an even older man who needed help to stand. "High Speaker Zorex," said John Carter, his voice weak but clear. "It's been a long time. 50 years ago, you exiled humanity to die. Instead, we built an empire. And now, we've returned to save you." Silence fell across the Council chamber on Eloria. The humans they had tried to forget had not only survived, they had become powerful enough to save a Council world when the Council itself could not. "We request a meeting with the full Galactic Council," John continued. "It's time to discuss humanity's place in the galaxy." 60 years had passed since humanity's exile. The Great Hall of the new Galactic Concordat on Earth was filled with representatives from over 100 species. Some were from the old Council. Others were new allies humans had found during their exile. All were equal members of this new alliance that had replaced the old Galactic Council. John Carter, now 105 years old, sat in a special chair at the center of the hall. He was one of the last survivors who remembered the day of exile. His body was frail, but his mind remained sharp. Beside him stood Director Paul Evans, the current leader of humanity. 10 years ago, we revealed ourselves by saving Eloria from the Vraxians. John began, his voice amplified so all could hear. That day changed the galaxy forever. The changes had come quickly after the battle at Eloria. When the full extent of human advancement was revealed, the old council had split in two. Some members, led by Zorex, had called for immediate action against humans, fearing their power. Others had seen the potential benefits of an alliance. In the end, the peaceful faction won. Zorex and his supporters were removed from power after decades of poor leadership. The council reformed, with humans playing a key role in creating a new structure that valued innovation and cooperation rather than fear and control. Today we complete the circle, John continued. Earth, once forbidden to us, is now the center of the Concordat. The exile meant to destroy us instead freed us to become something greater. Paul stepped forward. The journey wasn't easy. We faced hardship and loss. But adversity made us stronger, more determined. It taught us to value cooperation and innovation. In the years since their return, humans had shared much of their technology with their new allies. The former boundary sector, once considered worthless, was now the center of the most advanced research and development in the galaxy. Ships using human-improved precursor technology traveled farther and faster than ever before. We did not seek revenge, Paul said. We sought to build something better than what came before. And together, we have succeeded. Among the audience sat many familiar faces. Susan Walsh was there, now retired but still honored as the admiral who led humanity's return. Megan Grant, whose shields had protected the human fleet, now led the Concordat's technology exchange program. Ryan Blackwood, once a spy in the council, was now a respected diplomat. Kara Vastal, the Atlaxi who had first allied with humans, stood as a representative of her people. The day I drifted into human space was the luckiest day of my life, she said. It led to freedom not just for humans, but for all species who were restricted by the old ways. As the ceremony continued, a group of young humans entered the hall. They were the first generation born on Earth since the return. They had never known exile, only the growing strength of humanity's new empire. The future belongs to them, John said, watching the children with a smile. And to all the young ones of every species who will grow up in a galaxy where cooperation matters more than fear. After the ceremony, John sat near a window overlooking the rebuilt city of New Geneva, Earth's capital. Director Evans joined him. "Did you ever imagine this when we were first exiled?" Paul asked. John looked out at the city where humans and aliens walked together under the blue sky of Earth. Ships from a dozen worlds drifted overhead. "Not exactly this," he admitted, "but I knew we would survive. Humans always find a way." "The exile was a blessing in disguise," Paul said. John nodded slowly. "It was. The council gave us exactly what we needed, a challenge to overcome. And by trying to contain us, they set us free to become what we are today." As the sun set over Earth, lights came on across the city. The home planet of humanity glowed like a beacon, but it was just one light among many in humanity's new empire, an empire built not on conquest, but on resilience, innovation, and determination. The exile had ended, the empire had begun, and the stars themselves held new promise for the species that had turned adversity into triumph.